Hello there and welcome to the program today. My name is Doris Spenter of Library Arts, and I'm here to walk you through the wonderful world of the artist Edward Hopper. Now, Edward Hopper was an American painter who was well known for his realistic urban scenes, but he has some gorgeous landscapes, and in particular, landscapes that have lighthouses in them. So I'm going to walk you through a drawing using pencil, simple copy paper, colored pencils, and we're going to create a lovely version of Edward Hopper's gorgeous sailboat on the water using just those simple materials. So gather your supplies, sit down and relax, and I'll walk you through the whole drawing project. Let's get started. Okay, so let's get started with our drawing, which is a fairly simple composition, and I'm going to walk you through it. So we basically have a foreground that consists of water, a middle ground with land and some houses and a lighthouse, and then we have a large background of sky. In that middle ground, foreground area, we do have a sailboat coming up too. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure you have just a regular sheet of white copy paper, and I want you to have it in a horizontal or what we call landscape orientation. I want you to have a pencil, and I always think it's handy to keep an eraser nearby so that, you know, if you make a little mistake, you can quickly erase it. And I also encourage you to draw very lightly, drawing light until you get it right. And then we can go over it and go darker with a marker. That's the famous saying by art teachers. So if we look at our paper and you find approximately the halfway point, you want to go about a quarter of the way down past that because you want more sky and less of the water and land area. So we're almost a halfway up, not quite. We're going to take our pencil and just make a simple, light, horizontal line going across our paper. That basically is going to be your land line, meaning below this is going to be water. Above this will be land and sky, and your boat will be here down on the water. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to come over to the side and we're going to lightly draw a sort of meandering land line that goes a little low, goes a little high. I'm going to leave the land line stopping right there because we're going to bring the boat in later, and that boat's going to cut right through the land. We're going to echo that land line we just made with another thin layer of land that goes just a little bit higher, stops right there. Okay, so you have water, a bit of land. Here's the area where we're going to build your little buildings, and they're going to be quite small. And over here is where your sailboat will come in. So why don't we work on the buildings first? So we're going to start with looking at the buildings themselves, and there's basically about 3 little buildings and a lighthouse. So we're going to draw those first. So we're going to start with the lighthouse. Coming up, it's actually the tallest of the buildings. It's not a very tall lighthouse, but it's going to come up here with a slightly diagonal line. Then you're going to come down on this side with another diagonal. And let's go ahead and connect those with a straight line. You're going to put on top of that a cylindrical shape. It's going to look like this. It's going to come out a little past the line you just made connecting the two, because we are going to show a side of our lighthouse in a moment. And just draw a little curve on the bottom and a little curve on the top, making like a cylindrical shape. Now, right here in the corner of that shape, go ahead and take down the side of the lighthouse. And if you see a line like I do right here, just erase that little piece of land line. So now it's all just the lighthouse. On top of the lighthouse, you're going to see a little rounded top with a little circle. On this front plane of the lighthouse right here, we're going to add two really skinny, tiny windows. So remember, buildings are going to look very, very small when they're distant. And then the star of the show in this picture is going to be the sailboat. So the lighthouse really kind of sits back away from that. And it's just sort of a beautiful balance to the large sailboat that'll be here in front. So next we're going to draw one of our buildings, which is going to come out with a roof line, just a horizontal line right there, followed by, this is one edge of the roof here. The other edge is going to follow that diagonal, go across to make that roof line, and come down into the ground area. Now I'm just going to raise the land a little bit there because it really strikes me as more of a rolling hill here. So I want to put that in there. So there's the house. It too has two skinny little windows like this. And then beyond that, you're going to have the next building is going to come up just right about where that corner is. And it's going to come forward like this. So again, we're working with some diagonals to create a roof line. We're going to go across, not very far, and echo the same diagonal on roof lines. If you have a diagonal here, you want to match that diagonal on the other side. Bring it down just a little bit lower and cross over to create that roof line. Drop a straight line down here, a straight line down here. This one's going to have three tiny windows, 1, 2, 3, and on top you're going to find a little chimney like that. The side has one tiny window right there. Now we have another roof line coming over here. It's the final roof line. It's going to come up from the corner here. And then you're going to have the other corner of the roof line come up about right here. So it's the tallest of the three houses. And then we're going to connect that roof line in the back. And it's sort of like a little wider and then come down like that. This one has a larger window up here, and it has a door on the end, and it follows with three tiny windows. So 1, 2, and 3. So that is your little building. We're going to bring a little bit of the land line off the building here, coming over to the existing land. And now we're going to, before we finish the land going all the way over here, we're going to bring a bit of the boat in. So the first part of the sailboat is going to be this mast, and it's coming down straight like this. It's a pole, and then it's going to continue slightly curving inward to form a sail. So it comes down at a gentle curve like that, and it's going to come over. And I would, again, you leave it light. I may even go back and have to change it a little bit. We have a tall pole here, and so the sail comes out and curves in as if the wind is catching it right there. So it's a nice little diagonal curve, a line upward, followed by a gentle curve of the sail. The second pole comes out right near the first one. It goes higher, and then the sail starts at the top here, and it curves its way down a little lower than the bottom of this one. So it's going to curve out in a similar arc. It's going to come down, and it's going to end right where there's a little supporting pole on the sail. So you can actually take this right over to that pole, okay? So it looks sort of like that. Now, beyond the sail here, we're gonna have a little bit of a diagonal come out. That's sort of the back of the boat. And right here, connected to the pole, we're gonna have a straight line come up and go up, just come out, straight, and go up just a little bit. That is gonna be part of the top of the boat. And it is tilting a little bit, so we're gonna take this line down towards the water, curve it just a little bit, and you can see this is gonna be the top of the boat, and now we're going to take this line starting near the tip, and we're gonna curve it down and stop. We're gonna have a water line come in there in just a moment, so we wanna stop there for a moment. We're going to have another line that starts right past the pole, like a little tiny triangle. Then it goes around the pole at a diagonal, and it comes up. We're basically gonna be building a box here. It goes across, comes down, and then we have another diagonal coming over here, like that. So you see how the boat is beginning to form itself? Now we're also going to add a little piece on the back of the boat here. So if we imagine this is coming down, you say, okay, well that's the back of the boat there, and it comes out. Now, we don't even finish the boat, because honestly, the water is going to create this sort of wave that comes up like this in little waves, as if that's where the boat is leaning, and that part of the boat is hidden by these waves. So that is that. We're gonna come back up here now that we have a basic idea for the boat structure. We're gonna come up here now and we're gonna continue the land. So the land, as I see it, there's a little more space here than I drew. So I'm gonna just go back, lower the land a little bit here so I can bring that house line down. It's gonna stop because all of a sudden it's going to go up. The land comes out here. It goes up in a bump and down slightly. Now, on the other side of the sail, it comes down and sort of goes off the page. This other land line shows the sand kind of coming up here, like in a wavy line, and then it kind of waves up over here and also goes off the page. Down here, you have this light line we originally started with, and again, if you see it in your sail, like I do, just erase that line lightly like that. And we're just going to add a gentle light line that comes along the bottom edge here. And that's gonna be a slightly darker brown later on, and it's just gonna remind us that the color is changing there. And then we're gonna have some cast shadows that come off and go towards the boat and are really just cast shadows in the sand. So that's basically your composition there. We're gonna go right into color pencil next, and you will see how we can work on the land line first, work on our sky, and the most intensive part will probably be the water. But before we go into the color, I just want to show you a couple more shapes that are sort of large shapes that will help define how we treat the blue areas of the water. So right here, where this tip of the boat is, oh, and there is one more line I need to get in there for you. Here and there. Okay. We're going to take a line that starts very, very lightly. We're just using it to define some water shapes. Comes down like a big triangle, comes in a little bit, and then gradually goes off the page. Over here, we're going to have this sort of shape come in from the side like another triangle, and then below it is a shape that comes up and sort of creates this path of lighter water here. So that is going, and then this shape that we made into a triangle over here, it's going to go on the other side of the boat and just sort of go off. So that's just going to show us where some color changes will occur in our image. But now I think we're all set to move into adding color. So why don't we do that in the next step? Welcome back. So we have a pencil sketch of our landscape, our seascape with the boat, the lighthouse, and the homes, and the land and the sky. Now we're going to take a focus on the land strip, the buildings, and the kind of sand dunes over here. For that part of the picture, you're going to want to have, you know, several different blues to work with. I would say the light blue to mid blue with some darker blues. You're going to want some browns, yellows, tans, and even a little bit of a dark green like this dark forest pine green. And a beige also would probably be helpful. And just keep those nearby. And what I like to do, and I think is a good idea, is to have a scrap of paper nearby where you can test out colors to say, is that the best choice for, say, the lighthouse? Or do I think this might be closer? Well, I think that one's a little too aqua. I think this actually is a better color. But let me compare it to this one. Maybe this too also feels a little too aqua. It's a little bit more of a purpley blue, so I might even keep a little bit of a violet blue to blend in and layer, which to me gives me a much closer color to what I'm expecting to see there. So what I'm going to do is just keep this scrap of paper nearby for when I need to test out colors. But we're going to start with shading the side of the lighthouse. And with color pencils, what I find is it's best to start very lightly and build up the color as needed. Say, put down a base color, take a look at it, compare it to what you're looking at, and say to yourself, well, you know, I can see a little more darkness near the edges here and maybe near the land line, but I don't see it dark throughout. So I'm going to use that way of working. The whole, it's all about comparisons. I'm comparing one edge to another edge, saying, is it a little darker there? Yeah, it's a little darker near the top, but in the middle here, it's lighter. Then, of course, it does have two very dark windows. And I'm going to use that purpley color to get that. And I'm also going to use a purpley color to kind of give me a little definition near the edge here and the edge here, because that is definitely where the color seems to get a little bit bolder, a little lighter near the windows. On the side of the building, we're getting a lot of light from the sun. So it's going to be lighter on the sides of the building and slightly darker where they're more in shadow. But it's not a pure white. It's a very pale blue. So I'm going to put very, very pale blue there just to suggest the brightness and lightness. And then on top, we're actually going to switch over to more darker brown tones for the top of the lighthouse. So we're going to come up with the bottom here, and we're going to put in sort of a dark brown, but not too heavy, because there's a little bit of a golden color in there. So I'm going to put a little bit of this yellow, golden brownish yellow in here. So again, it's not all dark. Then next to it is, again, the light is hitting over there, so there's a little bit more of a brightness to that side, although it's sort of defined edgewise by a dark brown. The top two is quite dark, so we're going to darken that up. You could use a black if you didn't have a dark brown, that would be okay. And then it's a very dark, dark top here, like that. So I'm just gonna give some definition to that. And you're just gonna see a tiny bit of a definition to that edge, but more over on that side. So that's basically our lighthouse. Now moving next to it, we're gonna go back to that sort of darkish brown. My black color pencil keeps breaking, so I'm gonna probably have to find another one. This is what happens with color pencils sometimes. So we're gonna go back with the dark brown that I had a moment ago, right here. And we're just gonna put in a light layer again to start the roof line, which is gonna be in shadow. And then we're going to add in some heavier browns. So let's get in there with, let's see, oh, this is a nice one. Yeah. Heavier dark brown to really show off that. And even interestingly enough, even though that's a dark brown, it has a bit of that blue-green quality to it. So I'm gonna put a little of that green on top, which is going to come into the land a little bit more. So again, I'm layering colors, making them pretty dark, because that is what we need for this. This one looks pretty dark. Let's see if we can make that. Oh yeah, that's a nice dark color. Okay, great. The front of the house, again, is going to be a very pale, purpley blue, with darkened windows, and it's a nice contrast to that dark roof, isn't it? So we're going to make it nice and pale blue, but we're going to have the darkened windows again, the way we had the purple windows before. We're going to have that there too. And I think that this edge is sharper. There we go. Then we're seeing, and the side of the building will just have that light blue. Okay. Pull that window down just a little bit more. Okay, so there's another building done. Now let's go on to the third building. Again, this side will be very, very pale, because again, that is getting direct light shining on it. And the window will be like a dark, slightly darker, but not really that dark. We don't really want it to be that dark. So now we're going to come to the front, and again, we're going to be using the dark browns to show off that dark roof line. It's funny, for such small shapes, we have to use a lot of detailed work to show off the colors we see. Definitely, that's how it is. And we're going to put some black on top of it, and maybe a little bit of that dark forest green, which, as I said before, is going to tie into the land later on. The chimney is sort of a half purple color and half light blue, because again, the light is hitting part of the chimney. Below, we're going to have that same pale blue for the lower half of the house. Should be darker though than the side with the light hitting it. So I'm going to make it slightly darker, not real dark though. But I am going to make sure that the windows have that same dark purpley blue treatment. Okay, now we're going to move on to the third roof line. Again, I'm going to start with some brown here. And I'm going to go over it with some black. Oh, and you know what? I forgot to make the roof, not the roof, the chimney. There's actually a chimney coming out. So I'm going to bring my pencil over here and quickly add a little chimney. There we go. Same treatment. It's going to have a dark purple followed by a very pale blue, because the light hits part of that chimney. Over here on this edge of the house is going to be light blue, but again, slightly darker. And that's why I'm going to go to the purple blue here. slightly darker without being too dark on the front of the house, keeping it still a pale blue, but just a little darker on the front here, like that. And then we're going to put in darker windows, so we make sure we actually see those, and the door is almost hidden. It's almost not even visible, but you do get the little sense of the door being there. Okay. I also get a sense of this little edge of the house showing up, coming down here, and a little bit in here. Now, we're gonna start bringing in the land next to the houses. So they're all very shadowy, very dark, but we wanna bring in the land. So that's what's gonna happen next. All right, so let's move this over just a little bit so you can get a sense of starting on one edge and working your way across. Again, we can use our paper to test out some colors. In the little land area on the top, that's gonna be the darker land. So I'm gonna look for browns, that dark green, a little bit of this golden yellow that I had a moment ago, because there's a little bit of yellowness to it, and that's primarily the colors I'm going to use. I'm going to keep a little bit of blue nearby to touch that line where the two meet, but basically these are the colors. So I'm going to start with a pale brown, and I'm going to check it out here. You can kind of see the colors I have in mind are this walnut brown, a golden yellow. This is actually a black, which I'll use a little bit. This is the dark green, kind of a forest green. And then I'm going to keep a little bit of a light blue. So those are the earth tones plus the blue and the yellow that I plan to use. So first I'm going to put down the light brown, like this. And remember, the thing about watching a pre-recorded video like this is that you can stop and say, whoa, wait a minute, I haven't finished my houses yet. I need to go back and do that. That's fine. Go back and do it. Maybe you want to re-watch, part of what I already did and say, I'd really like to see how she did that color mixing again. I'm not really sure I'm following it completely. Perfectly okay. Listen, even artists who are learning new techniques, we do that too. We say, whoa, that was fast. What were they doing a moment ago? I want to learn how to do that, but in order to learn that, I really need to slow down and get a handle on it. So there's that. Then I'm thinking that I actually want to bring in a darker brown on top of what I just did. And then I'm going to bring a little bit of that yellow and that green in there too. So I'm not going to cover everything, but I am going to sort of put a little heavier brown over this, building it up a little bit, but not filling in every shape completely, because again, it's all about building up and layering. Here's a little, another broken pencil. Not helpful, I must say. Here, we'll use this red brown. Come in here with a little bit of the red brown. Come in with a little bit of that golden yellow. What it does is it helps you to pick up the sunlight that is hitting the landscape a little bit. And then the darker brown gives you the opportunity to give some darkness, some crispness to the edges, like this. I'm gonna come over here. It actually seems to me to get darker, so I'm gonna go in there with that green, because I actually like that forest green. Come up the side here. Get some of that reddish brown in here. So again, this part of the land is the darker part, and we're going to actually go lighter as we go closer to the water. A little bit of that green, maybe even a little bit of black to really darken things up. So I'll bring my black over here. It's almost like the sailboat is adding a little bit of shadow cast on the land where it touches it or overlaps it. So I'm going to bring that black in here a little bit. So there you go. That is part of that land. In the next section, we're gonna tackle the lighter sand area and the darker edge of the land that meets the water, and some of the shadows. So I'll see you back in a minute. Okay, now it's time to tackle the land, the second layer of land, and that edge that runs up against the water. So what we're going to do is pick out some colors again. And these colors are going to stay in the beige, yellow, cream. Let me show you some more sample colors. Sort of a peachy beige, a light brown, that sort of walnut brown. I have a color that I love called creme, which is a very pale yellow. You might need a little hint of a brighter yellow, but all of these are in the tan beige family. This is probably the darkest brown that I might use a hint of. But those are the kinds of colors, and I'll hold them up a little closer, that you're gonna want to work with for this next step. So let's start by putting a really, really pale beige color over the land here, nice and lightly. Again, not exerting a lot of pressure here. The idea is to lay in the color. Think about if you were repainting a room. Your room was painted a dark green and you decide you're gonna go to a beige. Well, you don't just start slapping the beige on top of your wall. You probably buy a primer. And the primer is going to be a color that's going to block the darkness of the green. So what you're going to do is just build up color lightly. And there's that beautiful cream color I'm going to use in here. It's going to give it a golden glow, which again sort of reminds me of the light hitting the sand. We're actually going to be bringing some blues in there later, but for right now, again, we're just building up some base colors before we go back in and add the blues. So now I'm going to bring in a little bit of the walnut brown, that light walnut brown, and I'm going to actually turn my paper just so I can get in here and shade a little bit without having to get my arm in the way of what I'm doing. And notice that it's just a light color. You know, pencil leads like on color pencils break very easily. And so it's handy, by the way, to keep a little hand sharpener around like this so you can quickly resharpen your pencil as needed. Because I find I have to frequently resharpen the pencil. Now, believe it or not, and maybe it does make sense to you, there's a little bit of blue creeping in here, right near where the land is touching this sandy, duny area near the water. And it's just a hint of blue that picks up the blue in the houses, the buildings here, and carries along just a little bit into the sand. And you're going to see that blue come out more as we go toward a darker sand below. So then as you get down here, there's some yellows, tans, and what I actually suggest you do is to have the image right next to you while you work. It's called The Long Leg by Edward Hopper. The Long Leg. And that will help you to capture the colors better if you can see them. I'm bringing in a little bit of gray because I think some of those blue tones also have a gray sensibility to them. And I'm going to bring the grays down here. So not any one part of this picture is one color. In fact, the gray is like a blue gray, so I'm going to put a little blue on top of the gray. And that's picking up in the blue shadows that he likes to do. So and a lot of the lines you'll notice I'm putting them down at a diagonal because that's the way the land is going. So he uses his strokes in a diagonal to emphasize that really pretty purpley blue. Here's a light blue, but I'm going to bring a purpley blue on top of that to really show off the color more. This very lightly. And what you just heard was my text message alerting me, but I just shut that down so we won't hear that anymore. Okay, now as we move into this dune area, we're going to have a little bit of it quite purpley blue, but we're going to put that aqua blue again here. This is shadow. Perhaps cast by the sail. It's hard to say, right? And we're going to bring that purple blue in on top, not too heavy, to show off that shadow. And a little tiny bit over here on top of the gray again. And this also kind of gives you the idea of little sand layers going across. Now over here, there's a little bit of brown, some lines coming up. And then we're going to actually start working our way down into an area that's slightly darker. It starts off very, very pale, but then it starts getting more dark. So right here it starts getting darker, and we can use that that really pretty golden yellow I had before. Where did I put it down? Over here? Yeah, the golden yellow. It's almost more of a golden yellow than it is actually a brown. So I'm going to bring that golden yellow right up to the sand, but allowing some of that brown to mix in with it. All the way across to the sail. And then bringing that golden yellow on top again. And then across, you see how much color he's bringing into this? And we haven't even gotten to the shadow on the other side, but he's bringing so much color into a little strip of land. Now he's doing it with paint, of course. We're doing it with color pencil, but I really do think color pencil has the capability of capturing often the beautiful colors that a painting has. So here's that beige. And remember I talked about the blue coming in? It is actually more of an aqua blue over here rather than that purpley blue. And I'm going to bring that in all the way to the edge of my paper. And then we're going to bring the aqua blue a little heavier up here so that we can put that purpley blue shadow on top of it. So put that there, and then I'll get that purpley blue. Again, not heavy, because there's something magical about the color underneath showing through that you don't want to lose. And if you go too heavy, you lose that quality. Okay, so that basically takes care of the land. So I think what we're going to do next is we are going to move on to the sailboat. And then the bigger area, which will take the longest, will be the water and the sky. So we'll do that last. Okay, so let's stop here and then we'll move on to the sailboat. Okay, so now it might be a good time to actually take a look at our reproduction again, and to remind ourselves, wow, let's do a quick comparison. Let me see if I can do it this way. If you look at your buildings, take a look at the buildings in Hopper's original. Now we're going to take a look at the land too. You know, I can say, oh, gee, there's a couple areas like maybe I should have a little more of this brown coming down here and here. But basically, I think we have a good, and maybe over here a little bit, but it's pretty darn close to what he's got there, including the land line here. So now we're going to turn our attention to the sails, and you can see there's a lot of beautiful blues, a little bit of yellow, and definitely some white in the sails. So let's start with the sails and work our way down to the boat. So I'm going to move this over here so we can focus on that area. And even though the sail looks really quite white, we are going to be using a pale blue to show that. In fact, there's a tiny sliver of blue that basically runs along the edge of the sail, picking up the blues that are going to go into the picture. So let's start over here on this side. There's also a little edge of blue defining that sail, and it's going to darken as we color it in. But the idea is just to give us a little outlined area to work within. And let's start slowly and very lightly building our light blue so it comes down to the corner of the sail and works its way up at a sort of little arch shape. It's going to go up at an arch. The same shape as the sail actually is the way this blue is coming in here, and it's a beautiful blue. It's going to complement the blues in the building, and the major blues are going to come in. So later when we do the sky and the water, and you'll notice you're left with sort of a moon shape right here. That again, I would not call it a pure white. I would actually think of it more as a very, very, very pale blue. But we're going to put this blue in here first. And then we're going to bring in some of that pretty yellow down here. So a little bit of yellow hinted at in the sail. And a little bit more blues in here, just a little bit, some darkness, but not much at all, until that is you get to the edge of the sail, and there you're going to actually see a shadowy shape echoing this sail and going up to this sail. Again, at the same kind of curve. Now I overshot just a little bit here, so I'm just going to erase that little bit. But I'm going to start with the same blue again, but I'm going to go a little darker because it really is dark, as if casting a shadow onto the next sail. And I'm going to darken this line here too, so you can definitely see the crisp edge of that shadow. So let's bring that blue down here like this, and lightly again at first until we build up near the edge of this sail, which is also going to have that pretty yellow in it, by the way. That creamy yellow is going to come in and play a role in this sail as well. So we're keeping this still very light, allowing for that yellow to come in a minute, especially on the edge of the sail here. Here, we're going to just darken it as it comes down, and it does get darker. And when you do this sort of circular mark that I'm doing right now, it's called scumbling. When you apply the pencil like that, and it's a good way to sometimes blend color pencil. So I'm just a little scumbling over here to the edge. And then I'm going to bring that yellow, that creamy yellow in, and bring that into the blue. It gives it a little hint of green without being green. again, we're gonna have a hint that blue is going to kind of outline that sail down here too. Adds a bit of an outline. There's some blue going through the yellow here, a little heavier. Still, that yellow definitely plays a prominent role, glowing through the blue. That's pretty good. Now, let's go to the mast right here. The mast is going to have, as you would expect, brown, but also a golden yellow. And I have that favorite pencil I was using before, that golden yellow pencil, to give it that golden yellow look right here. Now, in order to get that white, it is pretty white, so you can go in with your pencil, and you can, your color pencil that is, and you can just put in your white. My white appears to have some dark on it, so I'm gonna have to go back and take some of that part out. And here it had a little pink on it, but that's all right. Now, down to the little pole here, again, we're gonna come in with a dark brown. And this is a lovely walnut brown here. And again, that beautiful yellow, that golden yellow, comes in here at the bottom, was the brown comes at the top, and then there's that defining blue edge of that sail again. They really do want you to feel the edge of the sail, so they actually use a slightly darker blue in that area to really help give it that definition. Down here too, we're also going to have brown in this kind of pole that's holding the sail. Although I think, again, I went a little too far, so we're going to erase some of that brown and it'll get covered up with blue later. It's okay to go a little bit too far because you can always erase a little bit off and use the other color pencil to bring it back later. This shape, which is part of this sort of roof part of the boat, is quite dark, but we're going to bring that golden yellow in again, so you don't want to get too dark. You want to like keep it dark going across the front top here, but allowing room for that golden yellow to come in. And there's a kind of a suggestion of a shape here, maybe like a little hole that you would go down into the bottom of the boat. So we're going to put that in there with the brown. Adds a little bit of a shadow, but we're definitely going to keep it in the dark tones here. A lot of this is very much in shadow, particularly right here. So it's not really clear. You're seeing little hints and bits, like there's a little bit of green in here, but it's not a real clear-cut shape. On the side, however, we're going to go back to the blues. You have a blue shadow right here coming off that mast area and a little blue there, like that. I would go very, very, very light blue. But then as you come around the corner here, we're going to go a little darker again. And that's helping to define those planes. Like that. And then the brown comes in yet again, almost adding these like stain-like parts to the boat. Okay, the back of the boat too is very dark. In fact, I would be inclined to make that basically black, because to me it just sort of puts that whole back of the boat in shadow with dark brown on top of it. because you don't want it to be too contrast. You want it to be contrast in terms of the darkness, but you want to keep those brown tones in there. Okay, now the front of the boat also is going to be very pretty brown, lighter first, and as you go up, it's going to get way, way darker. Probably enough to say that there's a black right here, but I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to put some of that golden yellow right in here. And then we're going to put some of that reddish brown that I had before on top of that. I had a reddish brown, because it is kind of a reddish brown here, with gold undertones, I would say. And again, keeping that image nearby as a reference as you work, I believe, is key. If you want to get better at color mixing, at color layering, keep that reference so you can keep comparing. Is it darker than that? Is it lighter than that? Oh, I see. It's darker here. Let me keep layering some more color there, but keep it lighter over here. It's just going to help you. Down here, which I didn't draw earlier, I forgot, what I'm showing you now, there was a little black color on the boat, and above it is a very pale blue. So we're almost done with the boat here. Look at this. We are almost done with the boat. Gonna bring that light blue in, again showing that shadow. Gonna take some of my white, go right along the edge here where I do definitely see white, and I actually see some white streaks in there, and that, my friends, is basically your sailboat. You could always go back in and say, oh, I want to do a little touch there and a little touch here. I see there's, you know, white, bright white right here. I'm gonna go in with my color pencil and show that white, show a little white or a little more blue over here. But we're gonna stop there. And we're going to next go into the water. And for the water, you're gonna need some just blues. As many different blues as you have, pull them out, darks, lights, mediums, aquas. I'm grabbing a whole bunch here, purple blues, aqua blues, and we will use a lot of blues. So let's stop here and then we'll go into the water. We are ready to tackle the water. Now remember these shapes that we drew in lightly in pencil? That's gonna help guide us in our shading today. I hope you got as many blue color pencils that you could get, because that's really key to bringing this off. And we're gonna start with the lighter blues first, and then we're gonna work our way up to darker blues. So once again, I'm just gonna block in some very pale blue, getting just a little darker near the edge of the water, just to help define it. And I'm using the side of the pencil, and I'm using my whole wrist to just do light strokes to quickly put down some color. We're just trying to block it in, just get a sense of where we're going again. I'm gonna push this over just a little bit so I can block in this section also. And I like to keep a sheet of paper underneath, so if I go off the page, it just goes onto some scrap paper and doesn't get on my tabletop or my desktop. So this is just sort of a shape that we drew in earlier that divides some of where the colors are in the water and shows us where little waves and caps might show up. So I'm keeping my light blue to those areas for now. And then we can go back to the areas that need deeper blues later. Again, just a base color of blue, very, very lightly. This color is called Blue Cerulean Clair, as in clear, I think. No, it's spelled like Clair. Now, when I look at the blues, there's a lot of an aqua blue. You'll see very deep aquas. So again, this is way too pale. but we're gonna build up. We are going to build up. So let's start bringing some aqua blue on top. And again, we're just gonna start building it up where I see it darker, which is sort of near the boat here. I see a bit of it that's light near the water, but gets a little heavier and darker near the edges of the boat. And that's also going to help the boat stand out against the water. That's another reason why you're going to see it heavier and darker right near the edges of the boat. Again, I see it a little lighter up here and a little darker below. So I'm just going to put that second layer of color down like this. Coming up a little darker here. And trying my best to blend it even as it gets lighter or darker. Trying to keep in mind the idea of blending it. You can scumble again if that helps you to blend it, which it sometimes does. Like that. Coming over here. And I'm going to be, yeah, there we go. Running out of color because, as you know, I said keep that sharpener nearby because you're going to find your pencil is going to wear down quickly. So I just grabbed another aqua blue. And I'm going to scumble the edges to kind of keep it, remember the circular kind of stroke, to kind of keep it blendable so that I don't get too dark. Although I start seeing some little dark lines over here, so I'm going to bring in some darker blues, but not too heavy, because I'm going to go over them with this. I'm going to come over here to this side now, same thing, right up near the boat. It tends to be a little on the darker side. And then it comes out, and it gets more of a mid-tone without being too dark. And this time my strokes are horizontal to match the direction of the water. Now, as you get into this area, we're going to start lightly with this aqua blue, but then we're going to start bringing in that darker purpley blue lightly on top to show that it is definitely a more intense darker blue there. And then you're going to start building up little areas of darker color along with the blue. So you're going to get in here and make it darker here, but with little patches of water that are darker and sort of disappear out here. So again, it's a darker blue, but then it's going to be these patches of water, especially near the boat again. Helps to define the boat by having these dark patches here. Now over here, we're going to also bring that dark purpley blue right up to the boat. To emphasize these kind of little waves happening right near there. And it actually gets so dark right here. It's like a big dark wave coming in here. Just that part, not the whole thing, just that part feels like a dark wave coming in here. And then it just sort of sputters out a little bit and goes back to the medium blue colors coming in. Like this. And again, purple, random wave formations coming in. And I'm gonna have to take a moment to sharpen my pencils so I can get some more of that blue in. Comes up to the back of the boat. And again, right near the boat, gets a little more intense. A little more intense near the back of the boat. Here, off the back, over here, lightly, coming over here. This is where it started on the front, remember? But trying to stay out of the sail. We don't want it to get into the sail area. So you see how the water's coming in quite quickly? So we're going to go back down here, finish filling in sort of a dark to medium blue color the water. And I know I'm making this go fast, but I always do that so that I don't weigh down the whole program with just coloring in one part of the picture. So I'm going to move quickly, but allow you to think about whether you want to go back and you want to back it up, look again, because you're sort of like, I'm not sure. I see how she did that. I want to see how she put the purpley blue over the aqua. Now we're going to come in here again. Lighter, it's just not as heavy there. Heavier here, trying to outline that area, but lighter. And then we're going to bring more of the dark blue in. So we're going to move over here, bring this part in, is going to be darker, and then it's going to have that purpley blue again. So I'm going to, the toughest part is getting these edges right. This too is going to be darker. So let's start to bring in some of that. So here we have this triangular shape with dark blues, and then over here again we have these little ripples of water coming in. Unevenly, just little marks that suggest waves and ripples. That will take care of the water. And we're almost done with the water now. And you can go back here and look and say, oh, you know, it's darker blue than I had originally. That's fine. Go in there and edit. Keep that image, whether it's large or small. I did a full-size image, but you don't have to print out. In fact, I often work with the image just up on my screen. You don't have to print it out at all. But if you have that image on your screen, that's going to help you. So if we look at the water now, yeah, the water is darker here, and I could say, oh, you know, I really do need to get another blue in there, and I could come in here, and I could make it even darker. I don't want to take a lot of time to do that now, but if you feel like it's just not close enough in the blue, do that. Go in there with your own blue and make it a much more deeper blue. That's the blue I'm going to use for now. We're going to stop here now that you have the water pretty much in a good state, or at least a state where you can work on your own, and then we're going to come back and work on that beautiful pale sky. See it? Okay, finally ready for the final leg of this picture, and that really is to capture the gorgeous pale blue sky that is in this picture. That is probably the least difficult, but still takes a bit of layering and time. So I want you to find your palest blues and have them ready to use. You could use a little bit of white, but you're really not. You're going to stick with the pale, pale blues here in the slightly aqua tone. And what we're going to do is so lightly start to scumble. Remember, with that circular motion, the color into your sky. Just scumbling very, very lightly, especially near these building tops. There is so little color there. There's more yellow here than I had though, so I'm going to try to brighten that up. Okay, so little color. So lightly. We're really just trying to put almost like a breeze blowing through. Just so lightly. And as we go up higher, our color is going to intensify near the top with the more aqua blue I have here, but it's never going to go on heavy. It's going to stay very, very, very light, like this. We're not going to get a perfectly polished sky like Hopper has. We're not using paint, but we can use our pencil to just lightly put a layer of sky in. Again, maybe scumbling with our pencil like this. Light down here. Very, 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 very lightly, like this. Coming up, oops, getting the edge of my paper in there, so I'm going to get rid of that line because I don't want that. Sometimes when you have a paper underneath, that can happen, so I'll just get rid of that and just go over it again very, very lightly. It is more intense up here, so you can go a little heavier near the top of the paper, but again, you still want to keep it as light as possible. A little more intense near the tops of the sails for sure. And I'm actually going to go in here just lightly with my pencil for that part, so that then I can come back out and I can continue to use the side of the pencil to fill in. Going off my page again. And here, just giving a little more definition to the edge of the sail so that it does not get caught up in the sky. You want that crisp edge of the sail. You don't want it to get lost in the sky color. So again, I think this sort of rounded, circular side of the pencil technique gives you a nice pale lit sky, and it goes down pretty quickly too. So that's another good reason. Let's have something underneath my paper there that's making that show up. Sometimes you get a little eraser or a little something that will make the color go down darker than you intend. So just keep that in mind, that you may have to shift your paper a little bit to avoid getting certain effects that you did not want. I am going to put another blue on top of this in certain areas just to give it a little more intensity. And here again, something's under there getting in my way. So I want to find a blue that is a little aqua, but not too dark. So I have this one, but I also have this pencil. It's a very interesting pencil, because it has white in it too. I don't know how to describe it exactly. It's called a Staedtler pencil. Very soft. So you see it has a little white in it. So I'm going to use a little bit of that near the top here. I think it gives it that kind of beautiful blue that I'm looking for. It's slightly darker, as I keep saying, near the top. And I also have this really pretty blue that I can use to intensify here and there the sky until I get it just where I want it. It's almost like there's a subtle suggestion that a storm might be coming in. It's beautiful blue, but you get this darkness, just slight darkness near the sails, and you think, oh my goodness, you know, is that a suggestion that the storm is coming? And it kind of hovers and then it dissipates down below. So it kind of makes you wonder, and I think that's something the artist was thinking about. The calm before the storm, maybe? I don't know. You can decide how calm you want to make it in your picture. And then you can just sort of take a look around. You could say, I think I want to, you know, intensify that blue a little bit more. I want to bring, you know, a little more purpley blue in here too. Because once you get your images in, you start to see, oh, I think I could make that shadow more intense. Or maybe that should have been lighter. Or how did I miss that? You know, how did I not get that little edge of purple that was going right down to the sail? Why didn't I get that before? Maybe I need to go back and add that now. But that basically is the end of your picture. It's a beautiful sailboat inspired by the gorgeous work of the artist Edward Hopper. I hope you enjoyed this program today. I hope you think about reviewing any parts you need to re-see how we mix color, how we layered color. This is Doris Benter. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you enjoy creating your own drawing.